All right, then I think we are good. It is 3:32. So once again, so we have Dr. Lisa Norton, who is the Dean of the College of Education and Health Sciences. I'm the director of the Graduate School of Education because we find our home in the College of Education and Health Sciences. And Dr. Ijeoma Ananuju is our newest member of our team at the Graduate School of Education, and one of his projects that he's the lead on is this Diversity Now series, which we thought would just be like a few weeks of talking about diversity to kind of get the ball rolling. And now, as Lewis and Rob are here as good evidence of, the conversation continues to evolve and deepen. And so it just feels like we're probably going to be weekly having this conversation for just like a minute, right? So so we are so excited to have you all join us. And Ijeoma, I'm going to toss this over to you, and I'll just be monitoring the chat and the Q&A.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Rob and Lewis, we definitely appreciate you all hopping on with us today as we pulled an audible out. You know, one of the reasons why we pulled this audible to have this conversation today is because I was really just disturbed by what happened with Jacob Blake last week. You know, it's just yet again another example of what we are fighting against here in our country. But as we really began to sit back and think about it, we realized that, you know, right here in our hometown, we have had instances of this very same thing. And so, you know, how could we have a Diversity Now series where we're talking about social injustices and how they impact education without having a real conversation about what's really happening in our community as well as around the world. So this might be kind of a hard question to start off with, but where are we now?
That is a hard question. I don't know. Rob, do you want to start off, or?
And of course, it's all a matter of perspective. So yeah, so just from your lens, right, where you feel we're at.
And in that, when you ask that question, are you talking about Vallejo or are you talking about as a nation?
You know, that's a great question. I mean, we do want to focus on Vallejo, but I would really like to answer it first. Just where are we at, just in terms of this movement in general, nationally, and then how do we think that applies to what we're doing or trying to do here in Vallejo?
Yeah. Oh man, I would say where we're at as a nation is, I don't think it's where we should be or where we need to be. If we look back to George Floyd's situation when he was killed, you've seen this uprising and you've seen everybody starting to get involved in a lot of protests, a lot of action being taken. And it seems like we're moving in a forward direction and everyone's on board. You know, there's some pushback here and there, but it seemed like we were doing well. And then you keep hearing about all of these instances where people are still being, you know, attacked by police, still being killed, being like abused. And so it's like really just shining light on all of that. And now that everybody's paying attention and watching, all of these things are coming up and we're seeing it. And it's like, this is the reality that we face every day. And it's just coming to light. And so I would say, yeah, we're not where we need to be. We've made, you know, a lot of change as a country. If you think about where we were at, you know, years ago during the civil rights movement, like they paved the way, but this movement has been amazing. It's been amazing to be a part of, but we got to keep fighting and keep pushing for change.
Rob, did you want to add anything to that?
Excuse me. Yeah. I think that overall, as far as the movement and everything, it's the same story. You know what I mean? Across America, as far as what we're dealing with in Vallejo with the police brutality and, you know, what we have to go through economically and with, you know, the things that we're fighting against as far as the recipe that actually creates crime, where we don't have any education, you know, low education is poor. We don't have any opportunity, no job. We're under resourced and so forth. That's just an issue that we've constantly dealt with in America. You know what I mean? And I think that right now we're at a point where it's like revelation kind of, but more in the sense of it's time, things are being revealed. You know what I mean? There's more information. We have more access to information. People are breaking away from traditional, you know, thinking and ways of and processes and different things like that. So I just feel like right now it's a critical time in history, and I feel like what the actions that we take right now as a nation, as a people, is what's gonna determine, you know, how life is gonna be moving forward, whether it changed for the better or change for the worse. I think that that's just a crossroad that we're at right now. And I just feel like as far as Vallejo, we just have to just take the fight personal here in Vallejo and kind of make an example that as a community, if you stick together and everybody fight for one common, you know, agenda, one common goal, you know what I mean, that all other cities across America could kind of follow the lead, or, you know, and that's to be the best way for us to, you know, be effective, because, you know, we can't address and deal with everybody's issues everywhere, but we can most definitely deal with what we have to deal with heads on directly here locally. So that if that answers the question.
Yes, sir. One of the calls that have come out recently, just in relation to the violence from police in particular, is defunding the police. I know that we have in Sacramento, we have looked at defunding as more reimagining what justice looks like and reallocating certain funds to certain things. As it relates to Vallejo, has there been any calls for defunding the police, and if so, what does that look like?
I'd rather let Lewis answer that first, because he's been a little more involved with the defund police thing than me. I mean, I have my ideas, but I would like to let him kind of set the table on that first. He's a little more, you know, hip with all that right now than I am.
Yeah.
Maybe this would be a good point as you answer that, Lewis. Just tell us a little bit about, you know, who and how you represent in Vallejo, and then Rob, when it's back to you, you can tell us a little bit about your background, and then that, you know, so we get a little context for your answer.
Yeah.
All righty.
So when I got into like this work of organizing, like community organizing and paying more attention of what's happening in Vallejo, I just got home from college a couple of months ago. So I got home in the middle of, you know, a pandemic, in the middle of this national uprising, and I found myself just wanting to do something to make a difference. I've always been that way. I've always wanted to, you know, serve my community and find ways to get involved. And when I found out about what was happening here in Vallejo, I couldn't just sit and watch. And so I knew I had to do something. I started organizing in Richmond, California, with a group from like people that I knew growing up that reached out to me and said, hey, we're doing this. And this was around the George Floyd killing. We did a protest in Richmond, and about 2,000 people came out. We marched from City Hall to Richmond Police Department. And I seen all of that, you know, how people were coming out and they felt empowered in their community to come and have their voices heard. So I chose, you know, I was like, we need to do this in Vallejo. And at that moment, I didn't know that there had already been so many, you know, people and families doing this in Vallejo for, since 2012, and since before then, since, 1997, really. Vallejo Police Department has killed 37 people since 1997. So I'm finding all of this out, and I'm like, wow, this is crazy. And people are already protesting. So I meet some people who've been doing this. This is how I met Rob, and some other folks who were doing a lot of work in Vallejo. And so what I did was I founded an organization called Vessels of Vallejo, and we got really heavily involved with like city politics, finding out how corrupt the city is, and the police department is. Someone reached out to me from Defund Vallejo PD, which is another grassroots organization that started up around this same time, and Vessels of Vallejo and Defund Vallejo PD started working almost hand in hand on issues around the city. And we came up with what's called the People's Budget of Vallejo. And it was shaped after the People's Budget of LA, which was a survey that would ask, people, what are your priorities? Where do you think the budget should be going towards? Where are the most important things needed? Where do we need to fund certain programs? And where do we need to take what money away? And so there's a whole report on it. I'm not completely I don't know all the details about it, but I do know that the results showed that most people in our community, and we had over 1,400 people take this survey, and the results showed that people wanted to reallocate funds. People wanted, more youth services, more wellness services, mental health services, things of that nature. And so when we say defund the police, we don't mean okay, let's get rid of the police tomorrow. Let's take away all their money. We know that it's a strategic and a gradual process of looking at our city's budget at a whole and saying, where can we allocate funds to where we're getting to the root cause of problems? And that's a little bit what Rob was talking about. We need to address the root causes and see, why are these crimes happening in the first place? Because we have kids out in the streets because there's nowhere for them to go. There's no programs for them. There's no resources for them. There's no education. So let's, fund some programs for them. Let's get some houselessness programs to, get people in shelters, to get people in houses, and mental health programs, all of these things that are really the root cause of why we're having such high crime rates. And once we do that, the crime rates will over time start to go down, and we'll see, people in our community start to be successful, and, the ones that are forgotten and left behind will start to feel a sense of purpose, and they can start giving back to the community, and we can grow and heal together. So, sorry, that was a long-winded answer, but yeah.
It was a great answer, man. We love it.
Thank you.
Rob, your thoughts?
Well, I'm gonna just give a quick little background. I feel like I've been saying and telling these stories a lot, so I'm gonna just give a quick little story just to kind of give a little background about, how I kind of already, I always had, like Lewis said, I've always been an activist in my own right. I always had a message, and I always wanted to be a voice, whether I was making music or just writing or whatever. I've always been heavy into arts and making music, so most of my music always had some type of message. I always wanted to be a voice, for my people. And just growing up in the neighborhood I grew up in, pretty rough, seen a lot, been through a lot. We always felt some type of way about the police. We never trusted the police. The police was always like the enemy to us. But I was kind of stuck in the middle because my grandparents, they were the first African-American police chaplains for the Vallejo police. So, they tried to advocate for the police. They tried to be, a medium to kind of bridge the gap between community and police. And we was raised on the side of, you just don't trust the police, and it's us against them. So You know, a lot of times we would, you know, have a lot of discussions and stuff with my grandparents, just trying to give them our views on things, you know, and what we had to go through as far as with the police harassing us and stuff like that, because there's been a long history of that in Vallejo. And I often tell the story of how, you know, my grandfather has to be turning over in his grave now because my cousin Eric, who was killed by the off-duty police here in Vallejo in November, you know, he basically went out the same way that, you know, we were kind of grew up telling my grandfather what we were afraid of happening to us. You know what I mean? What we were afraid of in dealing with police. So he always advocated that, you know, he always kind of tried to make a good light of the police. So I know he was turning over in his grave because the way that that situation was handled with my cousin was basically the same old, you know, the stuff that we're dealing with that got us in the situation we're in right now. So after that, I pretty much just wanted to take my pain, turn it into power, and just be that voice, you know, to try to, like Lewis said, find what we could do to kind of get to the root of things and, you know, advocate for, you know, just a better Vallejo. And I do believe that a lot of that, it does have to do with our funding. I think that Vallejo was a small town, you know, it's under-resourced, it's you know, pretty low population, not a whole lot going on. And I think that our Vallejo police, they took on the attitude and they want to be like, they feel like the LA, like the San Francisco police department, like they want to have that kind of image or whatever. That's how they got that kind of attitude. And I feel like the city has kind of embraced that. And with doing that, they put a lot of funding into the police. And, you know, now they got out here with militarized tanks that I see come up the street every now and then. You know, seeing Sean Monterosa, he got shot with an AR-15 military-style weapon. So we see where a lot of these funds are going. It's just to beef up them to be more efficient killers and be more, you know, soldiers on the streets than actually out here to protect and serve. So I think that all this money going to the police is a problem. We definitely need to balance the budget out a little better, and you know, like Lewis said, allocate some of the funds to some of the things that will, you know, keep kids off the streets and out of crime. But that's where a problem becomes, because then if you do that, then there's no reason to keep on funding the police. So that's where I've been doing this research. It's like it's a cross up here in Vallejo, because it's almost like the city is encouraging crime so that they could continue to fund money to the police. You know what I'm saying? So me growing up in Vallejo, I kind of grew up in a different generation. So I grew up in a time where, you know, like I said, it wasn't a whole lot, but at least we had good Little League. Everybody was involved in sports. The Little League Pop Warner programs was good. During summertime in school, we were able to go and get summer jobs to keep us busy, keep money in our pockets. We had Boys and Girls Club that hosted dances, you know, talent shows, you know, different things like that. It was things to do. And now you see, and when you go around Vallejo, you see schools closed up, you see the boys club boarded up. You see, you know, just all that, like Lewis said. And when they took all the stripped that away from us and stripped the books out of our kids' hands, they basically replaced them with guns. And now we got kids and people out here with more guns in their hands than ever on the streets. When they took away our resources and different programs, now kids are out there on more drugs and experiencing with more different things and stuff like that. And that's just a result. That's a recipe, rather, for crime and everything else. So I do believe that taking some of that funds away from the police and using it to, you know, get more resources and stuff like that in Vallejo would be more effective than actually trying to use the funds to beef up a police department, because we're not a city that can handle that kind of funding going to the police economically. We're a low resource community, and we just can't afford it. So we have to figure out a better way to balance that budget.
You know, when you said the Boys and Girls Club being boarded up, that really resonated with me. I remember, man, this is over 20 years ago now, I think, or close to 20 years ago, when I was doing a little summer work there. And I remember Mr. Stewart, saying that there was this whole plan to rebuild the Boys and Girls Club. And, because, 20 years ago, the Boys and Girls Club was old.
Right.
And that money never came through. And now
Never
we
came
see
through.
that the Boys and Girls Club, which was a staple in so many of our lives, is no longer there. We have a couple of our attendees asking questions. First, I'll go to the Q&A in the box, and then I'll go to Ms. Brown, who has her hand raised. But Lisa writes in the Q&A, she says, I think the fact that SB 731 didn't get through is significant and reflective of how much more work needs to be done. For those of us that don't know, SB 731 is the recent bill that failed in the California legislature that was meant to take away badges from bad cops. And so it failed a couple days ago. And so Ms. Lisa is asking, what do you think about the fact that this bill has passed and what it means in terms of where we're going as it relates to the police?
Yeah, that's a good question. We wouldn't be where we are right now if, all cops were good. That, and I'll start by saying this. I have an uncle who's a police officer, and he's a white police officer at that. And I know he is a good man. He is a good husband, a good uncle. He's a good person. And so there are people who choose to be cops that are good people. But the system of policing is, it's a systemically racist institution that has, been since the beginning of policing, it's always been to terrorize Black and brown communities. They started off as slave patrol. Their badges used to say slave patrol, and it just evolved over time. And so when, this bill doesn't get passed, it shows that, there's something wrong with the system. There always has been, because it was built off of racism. And until we address those things and really find solutions to, get rid of those bad cops, those ones who do still uphold this system of racism, that, policing, you can never trust the police as long as those bad cops are in there. And so it shows that our communities aren't being heard. The people who have been victimized and have been terrorized by this system has not been heard, because we're out speaking up against this, trying to find ways to make changes. And the people who are in power, who can make the decisions, aren't listening. They're, serving their own self-interest. And that's here in Vallejo, and that's nationwide. And yeah, I don't know, Rob, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I kind of, just to build on what Lewis said, it's like, it's no surprise, that a bill like that wouldn't pass. We can't expect, that the people that's in the power to make these kind of changes and decisions are going to just change their mind overnight or over the course of a few months, because we fussing and protesting that they just go change their mind and just want to change up their whole system, which, like Lewis said, was pretty much designed, for us to fail and to keep us in control from the beginning. Just to kind of build on what Lewis was saying about the slave patrol, that is pretty much how policing started, and that was basically for a way just for the slave masters to keep their slaves in check. They was always in fear of a rebellion, because the rebellion would have messed up the status quo as far as economy was concerned. America was pretty much dependent on slave labor, to thrive as far as building the empire we know as America. I had a note that I wanted to put on here, yeah, and this is one of the couple of the main purposes of the slave patrol, and I just wanted to read these two things because it relates so much to police today. And number one was to chase down, apprehend, and return runaway slaves to their owner. That was the first thing. Two was to provide a form of organized terror to deter slaves and revolts. Number three was to maintain a form of discipline. So basically, organizing policing was one of many types of social control. Physical and psychological violence took many forms, including people being whipped, breakup of families, and all kinds of stuff. So I'm not gonna go too deep, but basically that system is designed for that reason, to keep us in control and to it's not made in our favor. So we can't always expect things to happen overnight. I think that, like I said, this is a generation where we kind of starting up a lightweight revolution, and we just trying to demand and force some things that happen, whether it's somebody like Lewis taking a stand and saying, you know what, I'm gonna go run for council, and we got to get some of these old heads and some of these people up out of there and start, you know what I mean? So that's the only way that I really see that the change is gonna come. So we can't just sit back and just keep on praying and begging them to change policies and stuff for us. We got to kind of empower what we can do to encourage that change. So I do feel like that is a very important bill, and I was in support of that bill and was hoping that it did go through and everything, but it was no surprise. I think California is only one of 3 states in the whole nation that didn't accept that, but crime pays in California real good. We got the most prisons and everything else. Crime is big business, so we can't expect them to just want to change up that overnight.
Man, we are getting so much feedback from our audience that I really don't know where to go next, but I'm gonna stay true to my word and go to Miss Zarina Brown and give her opportunity to ask her question. Zarina, are you still there? Ms. Brown, you still there?
Looks like she's muted.
Yeah, I'm trying to unmute her. It's not working. I'm sorry.
All right, we could come back.
Let me promote her to panelist. That way she can just come on and
okay, we can come back to her.
Texted me actually saying she actually doesn't have a question, so we're cool. We can move to one of the ones in the Q&A.
Yep. So we have another couple questions in the Q&A. First, we had a comment just in the chat where someone said, "Money and funding may not heal deeper issues." What other ideas do you all have outside of just money and funding that you think can actually help transform our city?
Yeah, I would.
And real quick, I'm sorry, just to top that off, especially for you, Louis, what can young people around your age, young people who are just getting home from college or maybe been home for a couple of years, like what can they do to encourage this change or this transformation of our city?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of getting involved. I never in a million years would have thought I would have been an activist, would have thought I'd be running for city council. I'm 23 years old, and you look at all these people who are running in these positions and they're, 60, 70 years old, and it shows why we are in the position we're in. We're not getting involved, in our communities. And for someone like me to step up and get involved, it is threatening to some people. It is scary to see. But this is what we need. We need people who, were raised in this community, who are young, who have the energy, and we need them to care about their community, because I'm going to have kids one day, and I want them to be able to be raised in a Vallejo that's safe and, has resources for them to succeed so that they can go to college and come back and hopefully give back to their community. So I think aside from funding, we need people who are investing in our community, investing their time and investing their energy in our community. And when we have, that, we're pretty much unstoppable. I think that we need to be raising our kids to know that their voice matters. Because I didn't know. I had to find that out on my own. You know, my mom never told me to run for city council or to vote or anything like that. Like, I had to learn that on my own. So if we're raising our kids and we're telling them, like, you can make a difference, and I know Rob can talk a lot about that because they got the fam kids that go out and protest and all those things, but it's empowering them and showing them that, you know, this is your world. You determine what happens, and you can be a light in this dark city and in this dark world. So yeah.
Yeah, I like how Lewis think, because sometimes I feel like I might be ready to go a little too deep with the subject, but he like set the table up for me to be able to bring it in and it makes sense. But unfortunately, funding is an important thing. I mean, funding is what America's built on. Without funding, you know, you only can do so much, and it's a sad thing. But when it comes to organizing and when it comes to movement policy and even like Lewis, he wanted to run for council, and in order to do that, he has to raise funds and you know, campaign money and different things so that he can get that position. So at the end of the day, everything is going to take a little bit of funding. You know, me, for example, I wasn't worried about any funding or anything like Michael said. I just wanted to see some change. I knew it wasn't a lot of people from my neck of the woods that were speaking up. I know how people felt and talked behind closed doors and on Facebook and Instagram when they ran rape or whatever, but nobody was really going out and actually taking that stand. So I chose to take that stand, and you know, over the course of going out and meeting different people and learning and different things like that, you know, I had the idea to get the families together and start our organization. That didn't take any money to do that. I didn't have it, you know, or anything. And actually, to be honest with you, with dealing with COVID and all that and stuff, and with the way my job was set up and was affected with that, I actually just quit my job. Well, not quit, but I just kind of just made this work, my 9 to 5. You know what I mean? I wasn't even worried about how I was going to fund some things or whatever. I just went with my spirit because that's what made me feel good, and that's the only way I kind of could feel normal, is by knowing that I'm doing something in this fight to make the stance and make my mark. So, and since I've been doing that, things have just been working out for me. I've been able to sustain, and you know, like I said, I wasn't thinking about funding going into that, but all of that comes from, I think, using our mind. I think the root of it is mind. Is this power of mind. And I think that's the important thing with the generation today, is because we're kind of taking the blindfolds off and, you know, we're trying to see things for what it is, and we're trying to use the power of our own thought, you know, to make our own decisions on things. I think that a lot of the generations before us, they were kind of set on, you know, traditional ways of what they thought, you know, things should be and everything else. And we learned from that and seen that, you know, that isn't the answer. And I think that now we're kind of taking our blindfolds off and we're trying to find a way to see a different way. And, you know, the mind is the most powerful creation. That's a weapon that's been formed against us, is mind control, because it reduces a subject's ability to think critically or to allow introduction of new or unwanted thoughts, ideas, or, you know, things of that nature, as well as change their attitudes and values of beliefs. It is said that the quality of life, action and speech determines the quality of life, and these comes from the mind itself. So if you're not willing to use your own mind, challenge your thought, and utilize your power of, you know, your own will and everything, then basically, like I said, you're sitting around waiting for somebody to tell you what to do. You're waiting for somebody to fix your problems for you. You're waiting for somebody to find a solution for you. Then nothing's going to happen, period, whether you have money or you don't. So it's just a matter of just wanting to see something change, and enough of us coming together to make that happen. I think that's where the root of it is going to come from. That's where the root of getting our problem is going to get addressed.
Yeah, and you know, I haven't said this yet in this conversation, but let me just commend you, Lewis, for running for council at the young age of 23. You know,
Yes,
this series
respect.
is titled Diversity Now, and we tend to think of diversity strictly in terms of race and gender. But diversity in terms of age is extremely important as well, right? So, you know, we may have a diverse, and I sometimes it's not, but sometimes we look at the racial demographics or the gender demographics, and we be like, that's a diverse group right there. But if you don't have any youth voice attached to that, right? If you don't have any diversity of age, sometimes you're missing the mark, right? Because the older you get, particularly if you are all a part of the same socioeconomic bracket, your views are not that different from each other, right? And so the fact that you are willing to be that voice of diversity, young, Black, male, right? I think that is tremendous, and you know, I definitely wish you all the luck and support you on your journey here. We had a couple questions that are in our Q&A. First, we have Amanda Lamb, who is asking, do you feel hopeful that Vallejo can become an example for the rest of the country of reimagining community safety and rebuilding our community together? What gives you hope?
I do feel hopeful. I mean, that's what all this is about. I think just having hope and trying to give other people hope. Let me look at the question. So what gives me hope is, I would say seeing what we've seen when we see people come out and protest and get involved and really want to see change. When we see, you know, our allies come out there and they truly want to see change. When we see other, you know, young Black people going out and protesting, all I can think about is like, all of these people are here because we want a better future for ourselves, for our kids, for our grandkids someday. And that gives me hope. I don't know. I think that we just have to keep up the fight and like thinking about and like imagining what Vallejo could actually look like it's crazy because we have so much potential in here in Vallejo. When we look at, you know, the downtown area, when we look at some of these buildings that are vacant and need remodeling, like there's so much that can be done, and it's just a matter of, and I don't want to talk about it all the time, but it's a matter of being fiscally responsible with our budget and you know, putting money in the right areas. And when we see that happen, I think great things can happen in Vallejo.
Okay. First, before I forget, I wanted to give a shout out to real quick. I'm sorry, y'all, but today is the day that Mario Romero was killed by the VPD way back in 2012. I'm actually going to be going over to support his family. They're doing something privately to, you know, honor their brother. So I just wanted to make sure I said that and, you know, gave them a shout out and to all the other family members and all the fam. Shout out to y'all. But yeah, there's definitely hope. I got to a point to where I was losing hope, you know, and like I was speaking on earlier, being that I came from a generation where I actually seen things that, you know, had an impact on kids. It kind of kept us from, you know, going into the wrong direction and stuff like that. We had different resources and stuff to where now today we have less resources, we have less opportunity and more, you know, craziness and stuff going on the street. So in that sense, it's like you start to lose hope. You feel like, because you don't see anything getting better, you only see it getting worse, and you feel like, oh man, this is going downhill. But where I have found hope is now that, you know, in doing this, you know, when I used to grow up in Vallejo as a kid and stuff, walking around, you know, we felt like we was tough. We felt like we were different. We felt divided. You know, we were who we were. You know, this class of people were who they were, and we all just felt like it was us against them, or it was just everybody minding their own business. They stayed to themselves, whatever. And as a kid, I would feel like the older white person or something. They would all, it's just in my mind, I felt like they looked down on me, because that's just how I felt, that, you know, that was the way of the world growing up. But then now in the position I am now, and with us out here, you know, fighting for the same thing, some of my biggest supporters and some of my best friends that I love to talk to when I go out are older white ladies. I'm talking about 70 years old, 80 years old, some even, that love what I do. You know, we could have a cool conversation, we could smile, we could laugh, and we have the same kind of ideas about things. And that to me, that's like the biggest hope more than ever, because it shows that, you know, we all can find a common ground, you know, somewhere. And if we just took the chance to get to know each other and heard a little bit of each other's story, you know, you would kind of be willing to put some of your petty differences aside and go stand next to that person and fight with them. And as far as can Vallejo impact other people, of course, I think anybody that, or any city or organization or person or individual, whatever, that does anything that has a big impact can definitely resonate in other places and set trends and everything else. I mean, we've seen what happened to George Floyd in Minneapolis. When that happened and everybody witnessed that, you know, that resonated across the nation, and now here we are. So, you know, that had a big impact and was awakening for a lot of people. So it's just all about what we choose to do as a community, and what type of impact we're going to have in this fight is going to determine, you know, what kind of example and influence we have on others.
Man, y'all really hitting the home run in terms of answering these questions. And as y'all was talking, I was just thinking it's nice to see Vallejoan natives that are this passionate about our city. I remember when I was a kid, the narrative was that you would go to college and get up out of Vallejo. But I always tell folks, like, the unique things about Vallejoans is that we don't know we from Vallejo by the way we rep Vallejo. Like, we go, no matter where we go, we be in Africa. Right. They'd be like, where you from? We from the VALLEJO. They'd be like, where is that out? You ain't know about Vallejo? Like, we have an amazing amount of pride about our city. And it ain't until we go out into the world that we realize that not everybody looks at Vallejo the same. But this narrative of go to school, get your degree, and then come back home and transform your city, that really makes me happy, because we're pushing back against the status quo. We have one more question that's in our Q&A. It's from Lori, and she says, what kind of support could a new organization like Vessels of Vallejo use if it was available?
It's a good question. The easy answer is funding. Where everyone who helps out with Vessels of Vallejo is volunteering. We all, you know, commit X amount of hours to the work that we do every day, every week, depending on what it is. And funding would be amazing. But what I'm more concerned about is if you're somebody who truly wants to support organizations like FAM, Vessels of Vallejo, Vallejo Peace Project, all of these, you know, grassroots orgs who are out here volunteering and doing what, you know, their due diligence for the community, I would say support them by approaching these organizations with an open mind. Be prepared to learn new things. Be prepared to hear about things you haven't heard about before. Because we're out here, you know, preaching, we're out here like protesting, shouting, all of these crazy things that, you know, were foreign to me when I first got involved and were foreign to a lot of other people. but you have to be willing to learn and put yourself in other people's shoes. And when you do that, it makes it so much easier for us to interact with other people and get other people on board. And then you can go and tell, you know, your friends and your family about what you're learning, about what you're starting to see. And I think just having an open mind is extremely important, especially right now, because if you're someone who's like stuck in your ways and you get defensive when you hear certain things that may sound scary to you or threatening, there's no way we can change and like move towards an equitable future if we don't approach it with an open mind.
Right, and just to follow on what Lewis said, I think that I'm not going to put a heavy emphasis on funding, because that is important. But I think more important for us being in Vallejo, it's more important that we come together as a community and as a coalition to some sort with other organizations, because we are so under-resourced and it's hard to get things moving and kind of make things happen in the city of Vallejo. So, that if Festivals of Vallejo, they may have, something, a resource or some information or whatever, that we don't have, that'd be helpful. And, we all just need to be able to come to the table and kind of bring our skills, bring our information, and be willing to, share ideas and be willing to build to make it bigger and better in Vallejo. Because a lot of people out here, with the organizations, and even just on the individual mindset, everybody is kind of take the route of wanting to compete with each other versus combining and trying to build it and make it a better thing. So I just think that we need the support of the community. And if there's anybody out there that have anything to offer, whether it's time, whether it's energy, whether it's a skill or experience or anything like that, be willing to bring that to the table. And, if all of us can kind of put our resources together, that goes back to the saying, like the Warriors, strength comes in numbers. The Warriors didn't have a whole lot of money or nothing, whatever, but when the whole city got behind them and they got on the same page and fought for one cause, they ended up with 3 championships. So I think that we could win that way too.
All right. We have about 10 minutes left. So I want to circle back to Ms. Brown-Zarina to see if she still has a question, or were we able to address what you wanted to talk about in our comments?
Yeah, she actually did not have a question, so we're good there. Thank you.
Got you. So we'll hit this a little early in the conversation. It's always kind of funny. You get to these last few minutes and you don't want to ask a question that sends us down the wrong road, right? So I would just ask this in the interest of time. Are there any final comments, ideas, thoughts that you have that you would like to get across to us that are listening here today?
Go ahead, Lewis.
Trying to think of something. But, when I found out about this panel and I seen the flyer, it said I can't remember the exact words, but something like young Black and brown, activists leading for change. And it's extremely important for young Black and brown activists to be leading this. We need to approach everything we're doing by centering the individuals who have been most marginalized, the most, disenfranchised. And when we center those individuals, when we're making decisions for our city, when we're making decisions for, our nation, if we're bringing their concerns to the table and addressing the issues that are affecting their communities, we're we're making the whole, city a better place. We're making the whole world a better place, because those are the people who are left out. And if, people like me, people like Rob, I never, experienced firsthand any family members being lost to police violence. So I was able to put myself in someone else's shoes and think about what that would actually feel like, and then go out and, advocate for them. And then as a Black man myself, I know that could be me. And so even our allies, when we're getting involved, we have to be able to put ourselves in other people's shoes. And so, yeah, just bringing everybody's concerns to the table and centering those who have been most marginalized is like the most important thing to do. I think if you're doing this work, if you're thinking about how you can get involved, it's just listening to us, to the communities that have been hurt, that have been terrorized, and seeing where you can fit in, where you can help out, and how you can, be genuinely effective in any role that you choose to get involved in.
All right, and just on a final note, I just want to keep encouraging everybody to continue to get involved. You know what I'm saying? We got to keep the momentum going. We can't let it die down. A lot of people, it's time to get off the couch. It's time to, we got to have it, as long as we can find a little cool position at the refinery or at Kaiser, or, you know what I mean, or wherever. We got a cool little job, but we could afford a little decent house or whatever. Then we just kind of mind our business and don't worry about what else is going on. You know what I'm saying? So it's time to start getting out of that kind of mindset and start being a part. Let's keep the momentum going. Like, come in. I think that when we go out and do stuff, I think it's fun. I think it's very inspiring, and I feel like anybody that come out, if they took the time to come out and just experience, coming out and fellowshipping with their community and hearing the stories of the families and stuff like that, it most definitely, inspire you and make you want to continue to come out and support the movement. And if not, then be willing to come and tell us why you're not coming. Let us know what we can do to make it better. Let us know how we can get you guys involved, or whatever. I'm on Facebook and IG all the time, and I got people that I know personally, grew up with and everything, that will go on a post and criticize something I'm doing or challenge something that I'm doing, versus you have my number and it's as easy as hitting me up in a personal message or whatever. All you have to do is call me up if you have a question.
But I bought it when I bought all the things for my senior.
So yes, people have to be better with communicating and to help us move forward with the movement. And just that's just all I have to say. Let's keep the momentum going and come out, see what we're doing, and let us know if we need correction. Let us know where we feel we need correction, or just help us get better. Let's keep the momentum going and let's build it and make it big and as good as we can, so we can have some real impact out here.
I appreciate the thoughts that both of you just gave. Now, like I said, we've been doing this series for a few weeks now, and I think the only other time was when we had the panel of black male educators on. Did we see this much action in the chat box? So I'm making a mental note to myself. We might just have to cancel the rest of the series and just call it Black Men After Dinner or something, and just bring a whole bunch of black men on, because apparently that's what the audience want to hear. They want to hear young
here for
black
Lewis
men.
Michael.
Huh?
They here for Lewis Michael.
Okay.
You got.
Because the brother is looking smooth over there. You know what I'm saying? I've been looking at his lineup like, where he getting his haircut, because I need something like that in my life. But
you gotta make sure that's a special guest. They'll make sure they tune in to catch Lewis.
Then Lewis.
He's a married man, though, y'all. Just to let y'all know.
Set your calendar, man. Tell the wife you're gonna be here every Wednesday moving forward. But No, in all seriousness, the audience has really enjoyed this conversation and hearing from the two of you. I think the important thing for me is the two of you strike a good balance of having new and fresh ideas and also being willing to figure out what the new and fresh ideas are. And I think one of the things that we oftentimes overlook is taking the time out to find the answers, right? Being diligent in our pursuit of answers and not just always offering up solutions that don't have any good roots or foundations. And so I really appreciate the two of you participating in our conversation such last minute. And I'm serious, we're gonna have to think about after today how we bring the both of you back so we can continue a conversation like this, because it's not just that folks are tapped in, it's that the things that you all are saying are revolutionary in the impact they can have. And with that, I'm gonna shamelessly segue into plugging the program that I'm associated with, which is the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusive Education Master's degree here at Touro University. And I just want you to know, if you're out there and you're listening, that if you want to see and have more conversations like this, you should sign up for the EDDI program today, because we are in the process of making sure that you get this type of conversation and deep dialogue on a regular basis throughout the courses in our program. So again, that's Equity, Diversity, and Inclusive Education Masters of Art degree at Touro University, to which I am so humbly associated with. This is a shameless plug. I just feel bad about just leaning on y'all and
we did not pay him to say that.
You're all good. Take advantage while you can, man.
Check us out, because look, Touro University is doing amazing things in terms of trying to have these conversations and having an impact on the way education is done in Vallejo and the way education is done in Solano County. I remember a time when people used to talk about Touro, and we used to be like, we got a university in town? Be like, yeah, we got a university. And the reason why because we didn't have any association, right? But we're rewriting that narrative, and we're making sure that our presence is felt. And I truly believe in the work that we're doing in bringing these types of conversations. So again, I just want to thank Lewis and Rob. I can't say go vote for Lewis, but I can say go vote. And then I can say Lewis. The pause in there.
Lewis is on the ballot.
The pause, yeah, he's on the ballot. And just appreciate you, gentlemen. I honor you, and I thank you again for your participation. And it's officially 4:30, so I think we'll go ahead and unless anybody has anything else they want to yell out, we'll go ahead and call it a day.
Jim, I just want to thank both our panelists from the bottom of my heart. I've actually been to several of these demonstrations with my husband, and so I've seen the work, and I got to tell you, it was so empowering to be around other people that really believe in a different world, that really want to see a different Vallejo. And, just standing in the street, blocking traffic, I probably shouldn't say this publicly, kneeling and just saying, we're not going to allow this stuff to happen anymore, that we are going to have a different Vallejo. And I think I love both of you for the hope you bring and the reimagination of our community. And I'm absolutely, both personally and professionally, as Dean at Touro, support the work you do. And we really know this, and so appreciate you both willing to come and talk about the amazing work that you're doing. And I hope, as Ejim was already kind of pointed out, I hope this is not the last conversation. We would love to have many more. And include others. Like, let's be inclusive. Let's bring in some of our other, partners that are doing fabulous work.
Right. I have some other people would love to join in on the discussion. And I just wanted to thank you guys as well, because part of everybody take a stance, but everybody's stance is a little different. And you guys setting this platform and giving us an opportunity, and even making reaching out to us to come have these kind of discussions, that plays a big part in the fight too. So I just wanted to commend you guys and thank you guys for having me on as well.
I am so grateful to you both for being here. EGOM and I also co-facilitate a monthly conversation of educators or people just interested in how can we increase the diversity among educators. Because as one of the, Zarina who posted a comment earlier, you know, kids need to see people that look like them in order to really feel like, yeah, I can do that too. And so it's just so powerful to see everybody really coming to the series, and you two just for on the dime, literally turning and saying, all right, I'm gonna show up, I'm gonna be there Wednesday, we're gonna have this conversation. So thank you so much.
No problem.
And real quick, gentlemen, can y'all throw out y'all handles, Facebook, IG? How can people find you? They asking us, they blowing us up. Where can we find them at?
I will drop it in the chat, but I can say it, I guess. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Lewis Michael. You can also find my website for my campaign. It's michaelforvallejo.com. You can also follow Vessels of Vallejo on Facebook. Let me leave it in the chat too.
Yeah, type all that in the chat, man. You know, old people like me, I can't even think. You said, how do you spell vessels? V-A-V-E? Help me out.
Oh, let's see.
And I'm active as well on Facebook and Instagram. You could just put in Rob Reason or General Rob Reason, and you'll be able to find me personally that way. And then on Facebook, our fan page is basically it's called FAM. So it's just F.A.M. That's the fan page. We just started a podcast, so we got a YouTube and everything. But if you basically go and join the group on the fan page, F.A.M. on Facebook, that'll pretty much connect you and lead you to the rest of the way.
Look, I didn't found you already. There he is right there. We own it. All right, love it.
All right.
So again, thank you, gentlemen. We definitely appreciate you both. Yes, please tune in next week. Since I have you all here before we leave, next week we are talking about grace in schools. So if you want to know about grace in schools, please tune in with us next week. We'll have another rousing conversation in our Diversity Now series. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, thank y'all. Everybody enjoy your evening.
All right.
Thank you both.